Every prospector dreams of uncovering a hidden time capsule, a patch of untouched ground missed by the old-timers. For Freddy and Juan, that dream became a reality, but in the most terrifying way imaginable. Their hunt led them down a trail of ultra-pure gold straight to the entrance of a sealed-off mine. "Check out those spray bars," one of them noted. "Look how clean that run is." Jets were firing with perfect precision, right where they needed to be. Everything about this place looked too good to be true. A forgotten corner of history, hiding more than just gold. Inside that old mine wasn't just a potential $3.6 million payday. It was a moment frozen in time, holding a chilling secret that explained why it had been barricaded shut, and they were just about to open it. It all began in a long-abandoned Colorado valley, the kind of place that looks stunning on a postcard, but feels eerie the moment you set foot in it. The sun was only just peeking over the jagged peaks when Freddy and Juan rumbled down a narrow dirt track, more suggestion than road. Morning mist clung low to the earth, swirling through marshy ground tangled with willow branches. It's funny when you think about it. This valley was scattered with the relics of broken dreams. You could feel the ghosts of miners past. "A lot of people have tried this and lost everything," Freddy said quietly. "I don't want to be one of them. This is the make or break year." Up on the steep mountain slopes, the evidence of old attempts was everywhere. Rusted buckets, collapsed timbers, and the crumbling remains of an old sluice box, half swallowed by the land. Most experienced miners gave this place a wide berth. They spoke of bad luck and ground too stubborn to give up its secrets. But that's exactly what pulled Freddy in. Wasting no time, Juan, who could read a creek like it was second nature, stepped into a shallow bend and dug into the gravel. His shovel moved with practiced precision. With smooth, hypnotic motions, he swirled his gold pan, letting the water wash away the lighter sand and rock. And then it happened. As the muddy water cleared, a tiny flash caught the light. Then another, and another. Fine, bright specks of gold clung to the edge of the pan. Not a huge amount, but Freddy, crouching beside him, saw something remarkable. "Oh man, I can't believe how much gold is in there. Look at that." The color wasn't ordinary. It was unusually rich, a deep, vibrant yellow that screamed high purity. This wasn't just another gold pan. This was something special, possibly richer than anything they'd come across all season. Still, even with gold in hand, a sense of unease lingered. The local legends echoed in Freddy's mind, tales passed down about mysterious accidents, miners who vanished, and a curse that had haunted this land for over 100 years. Most people brushed it off as spooky campfire talk, but out there, isolated and surrounded by silence, doubts creep in. By midday, they had a plan. They collected soil samples from all around, the creek banks, a gravel ridge, and a dry gully close by. Each sample was carefully labeled and packed into the truck for testing at the assay office back in town. The waiting was torture. You could be sitting on a fortune, but until the test results come in, it's just shiny dirt. Then came the call. The results were staggering, an average purity of 92%. To put that in perspective, natural gold usually ranges from 83% to 92%. They were sitting at the very top of that scale. In gold mining circles, that kind of number doesn't just turn heads. It sets off alarm bells. It's like shouting from the rooftops that you've struck a mother lode. Rival miners started watching closely. Juan wanted to move fast, get the heavy gear in place before word spread. Freddy, always the planner, urged caution. He wanted to fully map the gold-bearing streak first, to avoid burning through fuel and money digging up empty ground. In the end, they struck a compromise. They decided to bring in some of the heavy machinery, while continuing to dig test pits to zero in on the richest ground. As soon as the excavator tore into the earth, the difference was obvious. Beneath the soggy topsoil lay a thick, untouched gravel bed, dense, compact, and glittering. It was pay dirt. Their wash plant, nicknamed Big Red, roared to life and started churning. Gold began showing up in almost every cleanup. When they did their first official weigh-in, the results were staggering. $148,000 worth of gold in just a few days. Look at that, 2.96 ounces. Holy, that's unreal. But a strike that big doesn't stay secret for long. Word was spreading fast, and it was attracting more than just curiosity. The real problems were just beginning. They were being watched. It started subtly. Freddy noticed it one morning. Deep, fresh tire tracks pressed into the wet dirt along the access road. The tread didn't match any of their vehicles. Too wide, too perfect. Someone else had been there. Recently. And in a place like this? Strangers don't just wander in. The terrain alone chews up most vehicles long before they reach the valley. The next day, any lingering doubt was wiped away. Juan spotted an unfamiliar pickup truck parked on the ridge above their site. No logos, no plates. Just a dark, unmarked truck with tinted windows. It sat there for nearly half an hour, completely still, watching them before quietly rolling away. They didn't have to guess what it meant. They were being scouted. News of their massive gold cleanup had started to ripple through the tight-knit mining world. And in this business, attention like that is about as dangerous as a collapsing mine shaft. Not long after, a local landowner casually mentioned to Freddy that a few guys had come asking about leasing the claims right next door. Juan heard a similar story in town. It was a classic move. Get right up against their claim lines, crowd them in, and make things complicated. It was the kind of strategy used by desperate folks, people who'd lost their jobs, living out of campers in the desert, raising families with whatever scraps they could pull from the earth. 5 kids, someone said. And I don't even know how many dogs. Just a lot of them. All crammed in that camper. Freddy, ever the tactician, didn't panic. He double and then triple checked all of their paperwork. He backed everything up, physically and digitally, and gave his legal contacts a heads up. He was prepared. But then the line got crossed. It was early morning, just after dawn, and the mist still hugged the ground when Juan went out for his routine site check. That's when he saw him. A man, head down, methodically sweeping a metal detector back and forth in slow, deliberate arcs, right across their claim. He was even stepping directly over one of their marked survey stakes. He wasn't just snooping, he was trespassing. Juan didn't shout. He didn't need to. He just walked toward the man, boots crunching over the frosty dirt. The trespasser froze. For a long moment, the only sound was the faint electronic hum of the detector. Then Juan spoke, his voice low and sharp, with no room for discussion. The man didn't say a word. He just turned and disappeared into the brush. That's when it hit them. They weren't alone anymore. But instead of slowing them down, the tension pushed them to work harder. The excavator dug deeper, layer by layer, cutting through ancient gravel until its steel bucket scraped against something solid. Bedrock. They had reached the valley's ancient floor, the bottom of nature's gold trap. Freddy jumped into the pit himself to get a better look. The rock was rough and uneven, filled with natural cracks and pockets, perfect traps for gold that had washed down over thousands of years. And then he saw it. Something glinting faintly from one of the cracks. It wasn't just dust or flakes. It was solid. Carefully, he pried it loose. A gold nugget the size of his thumb, weighing just under 2 ounces. At today's prices, that was nearly $4,000 in his hand. It was the kind of discovery that could change everything. "How we doing?" someone asked. "Good," Freddy replied, holding up the nugget. "Well, we've got the gold." You could hear the nerves in his voice. They were onto something big, and they knew it. Juan, always crunching the numbers, estimated that if the bedrock kept producing at this rate, their total haul for the season could easily break past the $3 million mark. But for Freddy, that thumb-sized nugget stirred up something else. A memory. Years ago, an old prospector had once told him a story about a hidden shaft somewhere in this very valley. They called it the Hawthorne Mine. According to legend, it had been sealed shut in the late 1800s after a devastating collapse. The old man swore up and down there was still a fortune in gold buried inside when they abandoned it. Freddy had always chalked it up as a miner's tale, just another ghost story passed around over beers. But now, standing on gold-rich bedrock with a 2-ounce nugget in hand, the legend suddenly didn't feel so far-fetched. That old story was about to lead them straight to something no one had seen in over a century, a doorway into the past. The legend of the lost Hawthorne mine spread through their crew like wildfire. It was all anyone could talk about over lukewarm coffee and the ever-present smell of diesel. Everyone seemed to know a different version of the tale. A rich vein of gold, a fatal cave-in, and a team of miners swallowed alive by the earth. Some stories claimed the survivors had sealed the entrance themselves to protect the bodies of their friends. Others whispered of toxic gas and unstable rock that scared them off for good. No one really knew what was true, and with the surrounding bedrock paying out so consistently, Freddy and Juan could have just ignored the legend and kept digging. But Freddy had a gut feeling. The ground was trying to tell them something. That nugget wasn't just luck, it was a breadcrumb. So he and Juan began quietly looking for anything out of place. Subtle clues, anomalies in the landscape. The idea was to explore existing old workings, risky and expensive, but possibly worth it. Freddy knew how to navigate that kind of terrain, and if anyone could help them find it, he could. They didn't have to look far. A sweep of the metal detector near the western edge of their claim set off a different kind of alert. It wasn't the sharp ping of a single nugget. It was a deep, heavy hum. Something large was buried beneath the surface. Pushing through a thick wall of thorny brush, their clothes getting torn along the way, they came upon it. A decaying wall of timber, almost completely hidden under moss and layers of dirt. It was old, far older than any other relic they'd found on the claim. To confirm it, they brought in ground-penetrating radar. The screen lit up with a ghostly image, a void beneath the surface, a tunnel partially collapsed but still intact. It ran horizontally before sharply dipping downward. That night, Freddy pulled out an old mining map from the 1880s, something he'd picked up from the town archives years back. His calloused finger traced the faded lines until it landed on a small, barely visible crosshatch. Right there, Hawthorne. The location matched almost perfectly. Seeing it printed in black and white made the hair on his arms stand up. The legend was real. Freddy and Juan didn't even need to speak. One look exchange between them was all it took. They were going to open it. The next morning, the excavator tore into the earth, carefully peeling back the layers of time. What emerged wasn't just old lumber. It was a reinforced seal, clearly designed to last. Massive oak beams were braced with iron bolts the size of a man's fist. This wasn't just a barricade. It was a warning. A barrier. A tomb door. And then they saw it, etched into one of the main beams, hidden beneath more than a century of dirt and decay. Letters, rough and uneven, carved deep into the wood. The message was chilling. Keep out, souls lost below. Silence fell over the crew. This felt less like a gold claim and more like the start of a horror story. Freddy knelt, running his fingers over the ancient letters. The weathering confirmed it had been there for generations. Fear was real, but so was the thrill. To test the site, they drilled a core sample just along the edge of the seal. As the drill brought up a cylinder of rock, the sun caught something inside. It gleamed. Milky quartz ran through the rock like frozen rivers, streaked with brilliant flashes of yellow. Visible gold, gleaming and unmistakable. Suddenly, that eerie warning carved into the timber didn't feel like a threat anymore. It felt like a treasure map. Man, I didn't expect to see that much, someone murmured, staring in disbelief. Surprising, huh? They began rolling up the core samples. Now, all they could do was hope. It took an entire day of slow, cautious work with rock drills to break through the barrier. Finally, the drill bit pierced the last layer. But instead of fresh mountain air, what came hissing out was something else. Stale, dense, and cold. Air that hadn't moved in over a century. Then a final section gave way. A heavy slab of rock crashed into the mud, and a beam of light from a headlamp cut into the darkness, revealing the rough-hewn wall of a long-forgotten tunnel. They were standing at the threshold of a place untouched by time. Freddy was the first to step inside. The crunch of his boots echoed through the chamber, the first sound to disturb the silence in more than 100 years. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something older: decay. This wasn't just a tunnel. It was a time capsule. Scattered across the ground were rusted tools, lying exactly where they'd been dropped. And then they saw it. Running through the walls were glowing white veins of bull quartz. Inside those veins, like lightning trapped in stone, were thick, jagged streaks of gold. A few steps deeper in, half buried in the silt, Juan spotted something: a small leather pouch. Inside were several nuggets, still bright and heavy. A miner's personal stash left behind on what may have been his final day underground. Holding it felt like holding a ghost's paycheck. But their discovery was short-lived. Just ahead, the tunnel ended abruptly, blocked by a massive ancient cave-in. A solid wall of earth and stone, sealing off whatever lay beyond. Was this the site of the fabled collapse? Or had it been something more deliberate? A final, desperate attempt to bury something forever? So now the question remains: what do you think lies behind that collapsed tunnel? Was it just a tragic accident? Or did those old miners seal something away on purpose? Let us know what you think in the comments.